Right now on Tech Radio, the chips are down.
Hi, I'm Artemis. I am a computer-generated AI voice, and you're listening to Tech Radio.
Every week online, we bring you the latest in tech from Ireland and across the world. This week, the global chip market is suffering a $100 billion sell-off. Good news for Apple and consumers, and Ireland's new AI office finally gets a CEO. Plus, our guest this week is Gary Leyden, CEO of InsTech.ie, who'll be chatting about mentorship and startup ecosystems.
This is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
I'm Dusty. Joining me as always, our editor-in-chief, Niall Kitson. Niall, is this it? Is the bubble burst? The chip market is imploding. Has our day of darkness arrived?
Okay, right. Here's the thing. If you were to sit down with me and say, okay, I've got a bunch of money. Where do I, what should I buy? What shares should I be interested in? If I was to say ASML or Nvidia or SK Hynix, you would no longer be my friend. You would take your money and go elsewhere. It has been a bad week for chip stocks. And basically what has happened over the last few weeks is we have seen a new AI model, new LLM, come out of China called Kimi K3. I think we talked about it last week.
We did.
And it's proven extremely popular so far. And now we see that China has developed a series of new tools for making its own chips, which means that there has been sort of a domino effect on the rest of the chip market, because we know that, the likes of DeepSeek and Kimi K3 as well were developed on hardware that typically, or rather that in theory, should not be available in China, but through fair means or foul, probably foul, they actually got those NVIDIA chips they wanted. So now if it looks like China can develop its own internal market with its own internal brands, that sort of puts a lot of pressure on scarcity, which means that you can't have that sort of manufactured scarcity. You have got an awful lot more chips on the market, which is actually pretty good news for, not just for people looking to build data centers, but also for people like yourself, myself, who have been hit by price increases on RAM in recent months that have seen reasonably affordable computers and smartphones in the past jump in price. So if we are seeing increased volume and increased competition from China, this is good news for consumers. However, this has proved to be terrible news for the existing players in the market. So again, it's ASML, it's AMD, it's Samsung, it's Micron, TSMC. Together, they lost $100 billion since last Friday. It looks like chip stocks in general have lost a combined 1.3 trillion since market close last Friday. And, the sell-off is, in part to do with, okay, we now have competition from China where before there was none. We know they will be able to produce at scale and cheaper than we will be able to. And it's also forced a little bit of introspection. Are these data centers actually going to be built? We have an awful lot of commitment, but not an awful lot actually, built and completed. So what does this mean for us? So it looks like there's a bit more skepticism creeping into the market. And I'd say, last week's security incident with Hugging Face has not helped this situation whatsoever, because if you find people getting skeptical about the benefits of AI as we know it right now, well, why would you bother plowing money into it? Your perspective, Dusty, you're stroking your chin.
I'm just thinking about, you say, are we getting skeptical about AI? I think everybody's getting skeptical about AI. just in general. Like when it came along, it was amazing. But now you'll hear people kind of go, yeah, AI slop, AI content on social media. Oh, that document was generated by AI. It's another AI article. Do you know what I mean? Like AI has kind of not got the name, the great name that it did have 2 years ago. And I think it's kind of like every shiny toy, you know, and a shiny toy comes in. God knows I'm a sucker for shiny toys. They're all amazing for the first week and then you kind of get bored of them. I think that's where we are with AI.
I think we're approaching that all right.
Yeah.
It depends what you're doing. I mean, if you want to find out how to do something, it's pretty useful. If you want to find out, you know, write me or whatever, no. Because people are getting wise to, you know, generated content.
I would be the opposite. I would say that it's more useful for help me to write something, but less useful for how do I do this? Because you can't be guaranteed the information it's giving you is correct. And because it's trained to sound so very confident and accurate, it's kind of like, I mean, do you really want to read, you know, kind of some research or a book and have to check every single fact? You know?
Yeah. Okay. So I consider myself corrected.
Maybe, though, it sounds like finally we're getting to the reality, all right, in this great tech thing that we've had for the last couple of years, all right? You're kind of saying that the market is imploding on one hand, and then on the other hand, you're going, hey, this is great. So I don't know if you're kind of like reporting both sides of the story, or if you're going, no, this is terrible, or you're going, this is great. Because on the terrible side, it's kind of like all of the stocks are imploding and they're being devalued and everything's coming down. But on the other hand, you're kind of going, hey, great, China is coming in with new chips and the shortages are over and we won't have to pay as much anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's two elements to it. There's the models, for which there is an awful lot of competition now. And it looks like the American way of doing things, where they're looking to introduce some level of regulation, actually is not working against the Chinese models so far. Because you remember what happened with Hugging Face. They tried to get, I think, was it the attack came from OpenAI. They tried to mitigate it using Anthropic, and the guardrails for both actually meant that they had to go with a Chinese model. I think they had to use DeepSeek to actually come up with a security solution. So, you know, it's China's comparative lack of interest in guardrails is actually working to a lot of people's favor, which I'm not a fan of, be honest, but I think that's the reality right now. But I still think we're seeing this overinvestment in infrastructure, in projects that, you know, I would be surprised, for example, if Stargate is completed. That's the, $500 billion project in the States, where you've got SoftBank and Meta and Oracle and Microsoft involved. I would be very surprised to see that build out. Also, so would Elon Musk, but that's a whole other story. On the one side, I think, you know, there's the overinvestment in infrastructure, which is a bad thing. On the other side, greater competition between models, probably a good thing. So, you know, swings and roundabouts.
I heard a wonderful description of how things are going with the tech stock market at the moment, all right? And it harks back to cartoons of when we were kids, okay?
Sure.
And you know the one where the cartoon character is running along and then eventually runs off the side of a cliff? But
Wile E. Coyote. Yeah.
All right. So what they're saying is that we are Wile E. Coyote at the moment. We've already gone off the edge of the cliff, but we haven't looked down yet to see that there's nothing underneath.
Yeah.
That's what's coming next. I thought that was a great way of putting it together. But I think the whole thing about AI and stuff that tech are doing is interesting. Like UK have announced they're going to follow Australia and Italy. This is another angle kind of on the same story. They're investigating Microsoft.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Microsoft isn't the only one because we've got so many different subscriptions for different things we use in work, right? Microsoft being one of them. And this is the gist of what they did. They're being accused that Microsoft misled customers about the 365 subscription package. All right.
Okay.
And essentially what it was is, okay, you sign up and you get your Word and Excel and Outlook and yada, yada, whatever, and then it was, and now you also get Copilot because it's AI and it's amazing and and all that kind of stuff. And then zip forward another 12 months, kind of AI is amazing. And because of that, your subscription price is now going up. So you're kind of going, hang on a minute.
You can't say, can you take out the AI? That's
exactly. The AI was not in the subscription package when I signed up for it. And I'm finding that now with a number of companies who've all provided whatever service, and that's the core service that we have. They've all added in AI. Some of it is useful. Most of it is not. All right. But some of it is useful. All right. But now we're getting your subscription is going up. And it's going up like 20, 30, 40%.
Wow. Okay.
That's kind of like, all right. So, the authorities are beginning to investigate these companies and say, well, hang on a minute. Are you mis-selling this? Or are you not giving people the opportunity or whatever happens to be, which, it's a good thing. Anyway, that'll all come as a shakedown. Not everybody is going down in price. Apple is going up. Oh my God. Most valuable company in the world again.
Yeah. I mean, Apple's stock is up 25% this year. I
Why?
mean, if you're an Apple investor, you are a happy camper. So I was kind of wondering that as well, because, NVIDIA being the most valuable company in the world for a while, this year for a couple of months, you understand it. They're riding the wave of AI hype. You can see where it's going. Apple's progress, much more steady. We know they've backed away from Apple Intelligence, so they're not on the hype cycle. And we know their devices are getting more expensive because of the chip shortage, and also because I imagine there's a price knock on because they moved so much of their production to the States. So price is going up, but steady as she goes. You've got a new iPhone, you've got a new MacBook Air. The product cadence is pretty steady. What you're gonna get, and markets like stability, investors like stability. But we've also got a few things to look forward to this year. We have a new boss in John Turnus, who's coming from that sort of product background. So there's a lot of optimism about what he will bring to the table. And already we're starting to get a couple of drips about what that might be and whether that will bring Apple up to date with the offerings or whether it will put them ahead. Where did I come across this quote this week? Maybe you told me it. It was, I think it's a Steve Jobs quote, and it's basically, never be first. Brackets.
All right, okay.
But be better when you do it.
I was about that. It wasn't me who said it to you. And I was just thinking when you said, kind of, will Apple bring something new to the market? I can't remember the last time Apple brought something new to the market. I think the last one was the iPhone.
Oh no! Come on, Dusty. Come on.
What have they brought? In the Air, the MacBook Air. But that's
AirPods?
Just a better version of something. What have they brought to the market? That's the first to the market.
Oh, first to market. Well, AirPods. Actually, I would say because they invented the true wireless headphone market.
Okay, all right, I'll give you that. I don't use them. I don't rate them.
Yeah.
So,
and the Apple Watch, just the crown was enough to bring smartwatches into the consumer space, but they weren't away from the pure fitness space.
They weren't the first to bring a watch to the market, though.
No, they weren't. No, but they positioned it. They positioned it differently to everyone else. So
I was watching. I was watching the movie Blackberry the other night.
Was it good?
Actually, well, it was quite good. It was a touch of comedy to it, but basically kind of they just seemed like a bunch of nerds who kind of had a brilliant idea, but no idea how to sell it. And then they got into a CEO who was just a pure marketing guy. And then it took off and it was brilliant. But anyway, the scene was, they were king of the world. They had 40% of the phone market in the States. And then the phone call comes and goes, turn on your telly. Steve Jobs is talking. All right.
And that
And
was
that's
it.
the famous scene where Steve Jobs is going, so we were going to take an iPod Touch and then a phone, and then we're going to put them together and we're going to call it the iPhone. Boom.
Yeah.
So, and that was the end of BlackBerry, essentially, like, you know.
Mm.
I thought it was interesting. But Apple, I can't think of anything that Apple have done. They absolutely make amazing gear. All right. Completely overpriced. Rarely do they come up with something fresh to the market. Often do they come and really refine something and almost redefine something to make it amazing.
What was the last real dud that they had? Not to be confrontational about it, but like thinking, like, what was their last real dud?
The headset, the VR headset.
Oh yeah, the Vision Pro. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like, who wants it? Who wants it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, Samsung have been doing that for years, and Samsung have made it real easy and Google made it even easier again. Like, you know, they essentially had the cardboard one, and you just put the app on your phone, and then you balance your phone on your nose and use it as glasses like that. Who wants that? Who wants it? You know?
Yeah.
And then the other thing is Apple are rumored to be bringing out their own version of the Meta glasses. Who wants that? Seriously?
Yeah. Well, do you know what? I've seen Meta glasses being referred to as pervert glasses.
Yeah. That's what everybody calls them. A friend of mine has them, and anytime I see him, I take them off. But there's a little light on that says I'm recording. I don't care. Take them off. Now he does. He's in quite an interesting job, and he will take videos of him doing his work, and that's interesting because you're getting at the point of view, and from that side of things, okay, that makes sense. But for every other reason, no. Would you trust somebody? Never mind the camera side of things, right? If you knew somebody had a pair of glasses and you were talking to them and you knew that the glasses was whispering in their ear going, yeah, Dusty used to be a radio guy. He's into podcasting now. His value is da-da-da-da. His wife's name is da-da. He's got 2 kids. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
very uncomfortable. Well,
very uncomfortable.
Maybe that's part of the reason why Apple is worth $5 trillion. They know when to step back.
Maybe I think they refine and they make good quality stuff. But anyways, that's a whole other thing. John Turnus is taking over in September. We'll see what he does. Back to Ireland and tech and what's going on here. Oh, finally. We've been talking for ages about an artificial intelligence office here in Ireland, and we have big news on that this week. Tell me.
We have big news. We actually have a CEO appointed, which is good. Gentleman by the name of Paul Byrne. He's former executive director of education, innovation, and artificial intelligence. Previously, with the he was previously executive director of regulatory operations and support services. He's got a background in healthcare. He's current president of the Council on Licensure, Enforcement and Regulation, or CLEAR, which is the International Alliance of Professional and Occupational Regulators. So he's also a member of the World Health Organization's expert working group on regulatory considerations of AI for health. That's quite a mouthful. That's a lot.
Can we boil it down to basics? Well, what are we going to give Paul Byrne out of 10?
Well, I think coming from a healthcare background is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I think, do you know what? As an appointment, it's very hard to sort of stick a pin in it and go, he's the guy or she's the woman. This is exactly what we want, you know? I'm gonna give him a 6. I think it's better than having a lobbyist in position.
Well, there you go. I'll give him a 7 because, as you say, that CV reads very well, and he probably gets an extra point or 2 in that 7 for just being there. Because having an AI office in Ireland without a CEO is what's the point? The office is going to officially open after the bank holiday. Can you tell me what exactly the AI office is going to do?
That's a wonderfully Irish question. Here's a statutory body. Here's somebody that's very skilled coming from within the public sector. What are they actually going to be doing? Well, in fairness, This is the body that is in charge of implementing the AI Act. So if you have a problem with anything artificial intelligence related, this is the body that you can complain to. Now, there is also an element of diffusion as well, because there's an element of commission demand involved. There's an issue of the data protection regulator involved as well. But, the idea is that this is your one-stop shop for all things AI. And that's kind of what in a sense, we do have the digital omnibus on AI going through the European Union at the moment. So it's, even, the AI Act as it came into being 2 years ago now, which required an office to be set up. We're already seeing changes to it. You can say, this is where we're looking at regulation, innovation, and developing expertise. That's the official line. If the definitions change, I think that's a challenge for any regulator to deal with. You've worked with regulators in the past, or you've seen how regulators operate. If you've got shifting goalposts, I'm sure it makes things very difficult to be effective.
And do you know what? I'll tell you, it's really good, because we all look at regulators and go, oh God, they're the nasty people who are going, no, you can't do that. A lot of them actually do want to see progress, but how do you do it? Their hands are tied by legislation, or how it's kind of like, I suppose a regulator is like a parent, with a kid. They want to see their kid do well, but at the same time, you want to see it do in an orderly fashion. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. I think, the fact that he's coming from healthcare instead of the tech sector, I think that's a really interesting development. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the role continues. Speaking
of AI and new offices opening, OpenAI, as in the famous OpenAI, are opening an office in Dublin. It's going to be, they're expanding their EU head office, which is here anyway. There's about 100 people working on it. They're taking on another 250 people. They are going to be based, I don't know if you know the building, because this is about the only thing I'm going to mention about it, at the Tropical Fruit Warehouse. Do you know that, or do you know the history behind it?
No, I don't know.
It's down on the quays, all right? And it's one of those buildings that's been there since like 1850 or something like that, all right? And what they've done in the last, don't quote me, last 10 years or whatever, fairly recently anyway, right, is they have done up the actual 1880s, so so say it's 200 years old for the sake of argument, all right?
Sure.
They've done it up, they've strengthened it up, they've redid it, whatever, modernized it and stuff like that. But of course, there's not enough space in it, because it's just 1 story, 2 stories maximum. So what they've done is they've built a glass office block which floats above it.
Oh.
Looks amazing. It's the Tropical Fruit Warehouse. If you want to search it online, you'll get some pictures of what it looks like, but it's pretty darn cool. And of course, it takes a tech company to move into that. It was like, who was it? Is it Google last week announced that they're taking over the former Treasury building? Yeah. Which is opposite from the registry office. Well, that's what I know. Anyways.
Well, it's around the corner from where they are on Barrow Street as well.
There you go. Listen, speaking of offices, the return to office commands that we're getting from all the big tech companies and regular companies as well is apparently not about the water cooler moments. There's more to it. Tell me more.
This is the myth that we have been told over the last few years since COVID, when the return to office mandates started coming into effect, that, it was all about building corporate culture and getting everybody on board with the mission, providing membership for juniors as they come into the company, really creating that sense of shared mission and purpose, right? Well, we have a study from Professor Adam Grant, who's an organizational psychologist at the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania. And he found that, it's not about any of those things, really. The people that are calling for these return to works they're actually narcissists, basically. He had a look at a number of studies involving Fortune 500 leaders. It's called a meta-analysis. It's basically you take a whole bunch of studies and you compare them, basically, as opposed to going out and doing fresh research. But on the basis of Fortune 500 leaders, his staff found that because, and this is a quote, because in-person work offers richer channels for controlling and commanding reverence from employees in their pursuit of authority and admiration, narcissists are more likely to resist remote work. People who just want to be seen and to be told they're brilliant and to be held in high regard, they need to be around people that will make them feel that way, right? And this is it's something that, if you're a salesperson, if you're dealing with customers, you get that feeling directly because, you're solving problems for people, you're making sales, you're getting that kind of reinforcement that tells you you're doing a good job, at the very basic level. Hey, commission is a good feeling. Making target is a good feeling.
Yeah.
If you don't have that kind of connection with your customers, if your connection is primarily with your employees, well, how do you get that sense of being well regarded? Well, you just need to make sure that people think you're really knowledgeable or you're an impressive person overall. So you need to be love bombed by your underlings in order to get any sense of job satisfaction whatsoever. And here's the thing about mentoring. Now, one thing, Dusty, I will say, you are an excellent mentor. Both for me when we started off and we were sort of figuring out how to, talk to each other. Mm-hmm. Also, when you've had people come in and work for you on very short-term basis, you've always set very good parameters for what people will get out of their internship. And that's important, right?
Okay.
That makes you a good mentor. However, when you get everybody back in the office, right? And you're like, okay, here's somebody junior, you're going to mentor them. I mean, your own work piles up. Like mentoring somebody takes time out of your day, right? So I have 5 work to do tomorrow. I introduce a sort of a mentee. That's fine. I get 4 of my work done because that extra slot has been taken up with mentorship, which means that the next day I've got 6 work and it goes and it goes. And your actual amount of work just goes up because you've been mentoring.
And the problem
would you agree with that, having been on the opposite side?
I would agree with that because you often don't think of working with your staff and to help them and help them grow and do their job better and keep an eye on what they're doing and all that kind of stuff. You don't look at that as work because it's not a job, is it?
Yeah.
So I think you do have to kind of go, right, okay, part of my work day is I need 2 hours to be able to sit because you have to look at what the person is doing, how they're getting on. Then you have to meet with them. Then you have to somehow, kind of get them to see how they can improve themselves and whichever, so it does take time and you never, because you just have a chat with Niall and sort him out with that new microphone. Do you know what I mean? That's so you kind of go, that's not a job. But it's still
something you do.
It's an hour of the day that it has gone. It's interesting. On the working from home side of things, I think the mix is still the best way because never mind your narcissist and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's one aspect, all right. But I think just the human need to be feeling like you're part of a team or within a community, I think is a very important part of your life.
Yeah, that's very true.
I just think that's a part of it.
Let's look at the motivation there. Right? I mean, you join a company not because you want to go, that's the cool kids, I want to hang out with them. You join a company because you want to be properly paid for your labor.
Of course. But if they're nice people and there's a challenge and you get things and you get satisfaction out of your work, well, that's why you stay.
Yeah, that helps. They're still secondary and tertiary concerns, though.
Let's move on, all right? Because it's not a recruitment podcast. It's a tech podcast. And on tech podcasts, we like to talk about nude pictures of people generated by AI.
Sure. Why not? Let's go to Minnesota, state governed by Tim Walz former running mate of Kamala Harris, you might remember. You might remember her from such failed elections as Trump 2. Good job. So one of the nice things, Tim Walz is a good guy. He's been a very good governor, very liberal, and he has taken on the notification apps that have been used on X in recent times to generate non-consensual images of people, either partially or fully naked, and that extends from adults all the way down to children. Some people making one image, other people making multiple images. It's something we're looking at in Europe. Of course, X is not engaging with the process over here. But bear in mind, X is now SpaceX. So if you're suing X for something, you're suing SpaceX. So what has happened is that in Minnesota, a law has been passed pushing your liability per image at $500,000 per image, right? Mm-hmm. And SpaceX said, look, hey, we don't want any of this stuff on our website any more than you do, right? So we're taking this seriously. We're going to start targeting individual users of our service and suing them for, whatever, despite the fact that, the owner of SpaceX says he is a free speech absolutist and do whatever you want on the platform unless it hurts my fifis, in which case I'll have the algorithm turn on you. This is this is what SpaceX is doing. It has decided that, okay, suing individuals isn't working out for us. We're on the wrong side of the government. The government has passed a law, state government has, comes into effect from the 1st of August, putting us on the hook potentially for an awful lot of money. We're gonna sue. We're gonna try and get this thing repealed. Here's their argument. It's a clumsy attempt to prohibit the use of these apps. And it has an effect on a wide range of fully protected speech. So they're going to the First Amendment. They're going straight to the source, right? They're sort of going, well, okay, look, you can do all awful things with these apps, but you can also do, very valid things with these apps as well. That ranges from things like, satire, which is protected, but all the way up to, things with educational value, for example. I don't know how you're going to make that fly in court, but there you go. The First Amendment argument might stick, but in the background is this sort of, this is going to cost us an awful lot of money if it passes, an awful lot of money.
Yeah,
and we probably can't afford it. So,
well, then the best way is to take away the ability for the AI to create those nude pics in the first place.
That's it.
Sorry. Was I a bit blunt and simple and black and white?
For SpaceX, I think that might be a bit simplistic, Dusty.
Listen, we're almost out of time. Last story for this week. Pavel Durov, who's the founder of Telegram, has... Now, the last I heard of him, he was stopped in France and put in prison. You can remind me about that. And then it gets even worse because now Russia is after him.
Well, he's kind of in the same boat as Elon Musk on this, because Telegram, as we know, it's an anonymous messaging service. People are very, very fond of it who work in the media, just because you can, kind of like Discord in a way. You can join channels, but you can preserve your anonymity, and it's very useful that way. However, it does mean that a lot of very unsavory characters have been using it. People that are posting CSAM material, or people involved in money laundering, people involved in terrorism. Wherever there's a secret back channel, you will have people that will, make use of it in ways that the creator did not intend.
Okay.
So this is what happened with Mr. Durov. He arrived in France. The French authorities said, okay, for all those reasons, we're taking you into custody. We think you are facilitating illegal activity. And let's go. To which He's still under investigation. He hasn't gone in front of the court yet. He actually has an agreement with the French courts where he has to stay in France, but he can actually leave for 2 weeks at a time, which sounds very generous if you ask me, that he's still got some measure of freedom of movement.
Yeah.
But now he is a wanted man in Russia as well. Because what do people do on Telegram? They complain about things that are happening in Russia. So now all of a sudden he's some sort of subversive threat. Yeah. So I would recommend, if he likes tea, I recommend he knock that habit on the head very quickly.
I think if you were to look at a top 10 list of things that you don't want in life, like, kind of cancer or a nagging partner, being wanted by Russia would definitely be in there in the top 10. So
yeah.
There you go.
No windows for that guy.
Niall, as always, thanks for keeping us up to date with the tech news of the week.
Share the knowledge and invite a friend to listen. Search Apple, Spotify, or YouTube for Tech Radio Ireland.
Ireland is a global hub for insurance technology, where we're now home to over 120 insurtech companies and more than 180 insurers and reinsurers, including many household names. Now, that's a lot of companies who are looking for great ideas that many startups can provide. InsTech.ie connects all of these people together, startups, insurers, investors, and policymakers, to create a collaborative ecosystem that accelerates growth, supports emerging technologies, and drives international partnerships. Their CEO is Gary Leyden, and he had a fascinating chat with Niall Kitson about his own personal journey across the startup ecosystem and the secrets of being a good mentor.
Gary, your current work is with the ecosystem InsTech.ie, but your people would know you quite broadly within the tech industry through your experience with NDRC. So, at what point did you have an aha moment of, I'm really good at fostering communities. I'm really good at helping people achieve success. How did that realization come about?
Yeah, really good question, actually. And I think it came about by doing it and by surrounding myself with people. So before I got involved in NDRC, I was an entrepreneur myself. So I had established 2 of my own businesses. And this is dating me now, but I moved one of those businesses into the digital hub in Dublin 8 when it first opened. And funny enough, there's so much talk about Stash on F at the moment and establishing a big startup centre. I think we forget that we had a very innovative cluster of digital companies back then. So I moved into the digital hub because I wanted to be surrounded by like-minded people, entrepreneurs, technologists, people who were just really ambitious and curious. And I got involved at that time in mentorship a lot. I got involved with Enterprise Ireland through their mentor network. As an entrepreneur myself, on my way up, I had a number of mentors who really made a big difference to me. And I always made that silent promise to myself, look, when I'm in a position to be able to do that, I'll give back as well. So I became a mentor for Enterprise Ireland. Around that time, within the digital hub, NDRC was starting up, and I just thought it was a really interesting model. So I started doing some mentoring for that, and then eventually I went in to set up and lead the Launchpad investment program.
Digital Hub is a wonderful example of sort of things coming together from an industrial level, but also on a community level. I find that, it's engagement by having, an artist in residence, at one stage a photographer in residence, that there was this broader sense of the contribution it was making to the area. Was that something that kind of kept you involved there as well? The sense that what you're doing was sort of building to a larger project?
Yes, but I'm a great believer in place. And I think through a physical place, you create an awful lot of serendipity. And it's in those magical moments that really interesting stuff happens. It can't be really controlled, but it can be orchestrated in that it can be created. The environment can contribute to that. So I think the digital hub was a really important step in that. And then actually for NDRC, it became a destination that if you were a curious entrepreneur, you're an ambitious entrepreneur, that was the first place you went to have your conversation. And probably by doing that, you started to meet other interesting people. You found people that could support you. You would find investors that might support you. But you found your tribe. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, and an awful lot of companies, started off at the digital hub with maybe 2 or 3 employees, global brands that were coming to Ireland and almost just feeling out the market, feeling out the culture to see if this was somewhere they could grow and expand. One thing that I've seen in contrast was that we're seeing an awful lot of regional hubs that are relying on domestic talent. When you were around and working with international talent, how did that sort of help things? Was there a little bit of a culture clash at some point, or was it a case of, do you know what, let's observe how the Americans work or how the British work and see what lessons we can take from that?
I suppose, yes, you always look to see who else is doing interesting stuff and doing it well. But I think it was always important to me to figure out, well, what's unique about Ireland and how do we do it differently and how do we leverage strengths? So it's rather than copy Silicon Valley or copy Y Combinator. It's, well, what actually does the Irish ecosystem need and how do we build something that's unique to that? Because that gives us the long-term sustainability.
And, of course, as we know, the startup scene in Ireland sort of has proliferated. People seem to be much more confident now in exploring ideas as startups. Do you find that entrepreneurial spirit has been fostered over the last few years? And when I say last few years, I mean, as the likes of spaces like Dogpatch Labs have really found their feet.
Yeah, look, it's great to see that an entrepreneurial path is a valid career choice. That was always something that was a challenge. I grew up in the 80s, so when entrepreneurialism was more aligned with the likes of Arthur Daly and people like that. And it was kind of, well, if you can't have a job, you could go set something up. Whereas now it's a much more valid career path. I think the real challenge, though, is, there's a lot less friction to engaging in being an entrepreneur. But, it's still a really, really hard path. It's a hard choice. And I think you really need to understand that. So it's not easy. And I think, although it's easier to build a product, it's not necessarily easier to build a business today.
Mm. And in bringing together sort of a community or helping people find their tribe, have you come across cases where, there's a sense of either co-opetition of people maybe working in the same space and sort of not quite, competing against each other, but working towards a common goal, and outright competition where you see startups working in that same field trying to, I will politely say outdo each other. As somebody that's fostering a community, how do you, not so much run interference, but how do you manage these kind of relationships?
I think just transparency. You have that conversation very early on with entrepreneurs. We'd like to introduce you, but there may be a competitive conversation that you need to have first. Have that, and then figure out if there's an opportunity. I think the atmosphere and the environment that we created in the early days in NDRC was very much around collaboration. We invested in companies only at a very similar stage. So they were very, very early. And there was an acceptance that lots of stuff was going to change. So an idea might come in the early days, but it will leave very, very differently. So they leaned on each other a lot, and that cohort effect, we invested in up to 10 companies at a time. That was a massive bond and a big intangible benefit to the entrepreneurs. And many of those cohorts are still in touch with each other today. That connection has traveled through time.
Yeah, I've noticed that with a lot of startup cohorts that those, even, if these companies have no overlap, those sort of personal connections do certainly persist. When it comes to populating a startup hub, is it sometimes a case of, 10 people might come to you with similar ideas that are all brilliant, but you also have to watch for that balance. So for, say, somebody that's working in AI, you've got somebody that's working in green energy, and you have to create sort of an eclectic portfolio, if you will. Has that been a problem?
No, and I've often had conversations with people who said, well, let's really define this cohort in advance and we'll only look for a particular type of startup. My experience is you're looking for the 10 best founders at a particular point in time, and you go with that. And then the cohort becomes what it is because of that, rather than trying to control it too much. Ireland is a very small market. It's a small economy. Going too narrow too early, I don't think is advantageous at all. But backing really good founders at that early stage together, that's absolutely fine. And look, a lot of what you do in building an early stage startup, it's the same no matter what vertical you're in, no matter what industry. And a big benefit from a cohort is that, yes, there's someone on the team who's really strong technically on AI. Well, I'll learn from them and vice versa.
So then looking at founders that you've worked with in the past, I mean, sort of transitioning slightly into InsTech.ie, have you found people that maybe worked in a startup at NDRC actually come back at it, InsTech.ie, and go, look, I had this wonderful experience here. Okay, the business didn't work out, but I found a way to pivot here and I think I've got a great idea.
Yeah, interesting enough. So when I was in NDRC, I ran some fintech programs trying to find fintech opportunities to invest in. And one of the founders, it was a company called My Future Now, which is a pensions aggregation platform, which was ultimately sold to Legal & General. And actually, it's come full circle now, is that Alan, the founder, is a mentor on our Foundry program, which is InsTech's early stage accelerator for insurtechs. So it's great to see that.
And in finding founders, I think it's kind of an interesting challenge where you want somebody with enough experience behind them, but a certain degree of boundless optimism as well. So is that something that you have to manage?
I suppose when you're looking for the talent to invest in, particularly at the very early stages, it's all about the people. So you really are looking for that almost reckless optimism, but it's ambition. It really is. They've seen a problem and they really, it's personal to them. They really want to see that addressed and fixed. And really what I look for is the insight that they bring. So they've probably worked in a particular space for a period of time. They've lived that problem. They really understand it, and they have a bit of insight that actually kind of makes you pause and go, wow, I didn't realize that, or I didn't think that. And that's the kind of the kernel of where their competitive advantage is going to come from. And that's what we need to support them to build upon.
And when you're looking at how startups are progressing on their journey, have you often stepped back and go, do you know what, there's a lesson for me there? That's really good. They had a really good conversation with a prospective client. How did that happen? How can I parlay this into experience in my own mentorship journey?
Yeah, look, it's a win-win for everybody in that environment. Particularly mentors, they get as much out of it as they give into it as well. It's a massive learning opportunity. And there's such energy in hanging around with early stage ambitious entrepreneurs that it's a fantastic environment to hang out in. So absolutely, I think for any mentor, you're always looking to kind of keep your finger on the pulse and understand what's happening in the industry. And no better way to do that than by connecting in with early stage entrepreneurs who will constantly challenge your thinking about how businesses should be built.
So in going from NDRC, which is sort of having such a broad remit and dealing with such a broad range of companies, you're now looking at insurance tech. So tell me about the attraction of this industry.
Yeah, so probably to a degree, it was that serendipity that we talked about. So I was very involved in HBAN, the All Ireland Angel Network. And through that, one of the investors in that happened to be a CEO of an insurance company. And we started talking about their observations around the tech ecosystem and how well connected it was and how well functioning it was, and their experience of the insurance ecosystem and how fragmented it was, how siloed it was, and why couldn't one be like the other. And that just really appealed to me because I had often walked up towards Guinness's past the IFSC and wondered why those two worlds didn't connect more often. Why either as customers or investors, and that there was a real opportunity to bring together incumbent industries with the emerging tech ecosystem. So it's something that really resonated with me. So on the back of that conversation, I was introduced to a number of CEOs of insurance firms to validate that some of those assumptions were correct. And there's a real appetite to do something about it. So we built what we call is a coalition of the willing of 10 insurance firms who came together and said, look, we're going to take a little bit of a leap of faith here. And I proposed to them bringing together an innovation ecosystem, one that reached across all stakeholders. It wasn't about any one individual stakeholder. It was about creating an environment where real collaboration could happen. And more importantly, from probably Ireland's Inc.'s point of view, is helping an industry that really needed it to transform.
Was there that sense of when you were dealing with startups, the sort of these guys really wouldn't want to play with me. They're huge level. They've clearly got in-house devs or in-house people that are responsible for these projects. Like where would I fit in at all?
Yeah, I think the first wave of InsurTech was probably a little bit competitive. So it was InsurTechs were launching to slay the incumbent. It was going to do things very, very differently. And that, to be honest, just did not take off. It did not work. There's a few outliers in that, but in the main, it didn't really work. And the next wave of InsurTech was really built on an appreciation by both insurers and InsurTechs that they needed each other, that they both brought different skill sets and different experiences, and that actually collaboration was the way forward. But the real challenge is collaboration. How do you collaborate? It's an alien skill set to a big, large insurance company. And it's challenging for an impatient InsurTech to do that and to make that happen. So that's what we try to do is help create an environment for greater collaboration to happen. And there isn't a silver bullet to that. That means doing lots of different things. But that's the path that we think is going to make Ireland really stand out internationally.
I imagine that's a huge problem where you have a startup and you can point to the founder and you can say, right, that's our point of contact. If you're dealing with a multinational, it's like, who do I point to? They're not in Ireland most of the time. So how do we actually foster that element of collaboration when finding the actual decision maker? It can be very difficult, and certainly getting approval on projects to finish up can take much longer.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it goes deeper than that. It's actually a cultural issue, is that those large organizations, those large insurance companies have, it's a regulated industry, and that brings its own challenges because getting it wrong in insurance has very material consequences. So by their nature, they're very risk averse. Whereas that's the opposite view in a startup who's wants to move quickly, break things, learn, move on. So those two worlds coming together, how do you actually make that happen? So, we've created an environment where we can encourage greater curiosity within the insurers, expose them to different types of InsurTechs and different types of thinking. And then we kind of sit in that messy middle and help those relationships come together. So, to an extent, it's a little bit of dating.
So do you think some InsTechs comes to you and just their idea is far too broad, that it's sort of, we're going to go into this company and we're going to change everything and make it much more efficient, instead of, look, here's a very small specific problem, we can fix it for you guys and you won't have to worry about it? Because I imagine, if a company has a very broad offering, there is that sense of, well, we don't control it. It's a very tightly registered, regulated industry, as you said. And if something breaks, our brand value is going to take a significant hit.
Yeah, as I said, they're very risk averse. They're very concerned about things going wrong. So one of the things that we've done is we've invested in what we call a digital sandbox. So it's a technology environment where, the name itself says that it's a sandbox. You can play with new technologies, with new types of data, but in a safe way. So it's air gapped. It's not connected to your production environment. It's completely private. The data that we use in it is synthetic, so there's no privacy issues at all. And it gives you access to all the new tools. So if you want to do a proof of concept with an insurtech, well, first step should be do it in the sandbox. Understand that it actually delivers the value that you want to do. And now that really helps your business case to bring that back to the rest of the organization to say, now we need to start talking about integration. Because integration is another big issue. You can have a great idea. You can almost have built a wonderful product, but unless it integrates with the technology stack within an insurer, you're not really going to be able to reach the larger market.
Another challenge, I imagine, is helping people recognize when an idea has, either petered out or just kind of reached the end of its natural life, or maybe another piece of technology has come along that has completely subverted what the original plan was. How do you help somebody sort of come to terms with the fact that, look, maybe their idea isn't what they thought it would be?
Yeah, so I think, sometimes you're a mentor, sometimes you're a counselor, and you need to switch between those two roles. I think it's a really important role to have someone who can sit on the outside and maybe challenge some of the assumptions and some of the thinking, but in a very supportive way. So that for the founders, they know this person is on their side, but they're going to ask me the uncomfortable questions because you won't ask those of yourselves. They're really tough, hard questions, and most entrepreneurs will just ignore them. So if you have that supportive environment where you can be surrounded with mentors who really want to see you succeed, but equally see the challenges that lie ahead and will try and help you, I suppose, understand those and help navigate around them.
And that was Niall Kitson chatting with InsTech.ie CEO Gary Leyden. InsTech is recruiting for the next cohort of its Foundry program. You can learn more about that and apply by visiting InsTech.ie. And I'll stick the link for that in the description area of this podcast.
This is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
That's it for our show this week. Do check out a ton more stories that we have online that we couldn't squeeze into the podcast, including what?
Sure. If you're a competitor of Google in the EU, well, get ready for some grief over the Digital Markets Act and potentially a long legal battle ahead of you. We also find out how many Irish businesses have experienced a cyber attack in the last 12 months, and NVIDIA takes it on itself to make AI safer.
Those stories and more online for you right now at techcentral.ie. We're back again next Friday with a brand new show. In the meantime, please do share our podcast with a friend if they're into tech and with all the goss and what's going on here in Ireland. Just time to search for Tech Radio Ireland on their favourite podcasting app or on YouTube. Until next time, from myself, Dusty Rhodes, and from Niall Kitson, thanks for listening and have an excellent bank holiday weekend.
Remember, you can get the latest Irish tech news with hourly updates, daily newsletters, and more at our website, techcentral.ie. Share the knowledge and invite a friend to listen. Search Apple, Spotify, or YouTube for Tech Radio Ireland. Tech Radio is produced by dustpod.io for techcentral.ie. From me, Artemis, live long and prosper.